Dan Candee. I've had the great pleasure of knowing Dan for a couple of years now. Just very well balanced individual. Smart as all heck, by the way. When I say love plus performance, what does that formula mean to you? How often do we hear love being, in the business sense? I don't hear it very often. But Dan has a fascinating background story. College, he decided to quit, start a house painting job that was, as he says, overwhelmingly unpopular with his family, but big stints at Dell, EMC, at AWS, and now he's working with managed service providers, small to medium businesses, working closely with them, helping them in some of the big cyber issues. But just my time with Dan it always goes by very quickly, always well spent. He's traveled. He's been in Japan for 6 months, in India. He lived in Russia for a while, and he's been in Italy a number of times. We speak Italian back and forth occasionally, which is always refreshing. I don't get enough practice at it, but I love talking to Dan, and I look forward to seeing him more and more in the future. Thanks for your time. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because of working way too much. Before you know it, I found myself 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. Took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People think there's some secret. Ask me, how'd you lose that weight? Like there's some secret. There is no secret. How'd I lose the weight? Just one word: discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends, colleagues convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission: how do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport, wellness, business, technology, science, art, and culture. And I eventually ask them how discipline plays a role in their life. Podcast vision: growth through learning from others. Dan Candee, thank you so much for your time. Dan, what is the formula love plus performance?
You have tapped into the high level thinking of what I have been able to work against over the last 15-ish years. Success is a result of love plus performance. And I think in life, we all as humans have moments where things make sense and then they don't. And we all know that sometimes things are easy and then they get hard, and then they get extremely harder. And then when you think you can't handle anymore, you find out that you can actually unlock yet another door and continue on. And to me, that is one of the miracles of being a human, and one of the absolute joys of being a people leader and a teammate and a family member and a community member. And so when people, been running businesses, small businesses, startups, had my own startup, done a wide variety of things, over the last few decades, from dropping out of college to start a house painting company to running $1 billion business at AWS. I've been able to do a few things, and we collectively do performance day in, day out, right? We all have to show up. My 6-year-old today, after Thanksgiving break, has to show up, and he's got to continue learning how to read, and he's got to put together the sounds, and he's got to spell cat. And you and I have our performance obligations to our teams and to our partners. And what I found is that that's fine. That's normal. But what is missing when things get hard, or what's missing where you can amplify the joy? And that's that love piece. And so my simple framework are those two words, which are very simple and broad. But under love exists respect, safety, security, trust, the ability for you to bring your authentic self to this relationship in a meaningful way versus some other version of you. For us as people to interact and understand, hey, things are going to get screwed up. And today we can only make the best possible decision that we can make today. And tomorrow we might need to make a new one. But if we trust and love one another enough, and if we're listening enough, then we can do that with a lot of respect. And so that's where that love piece, and what it does over time is it creates highly authentic, highly powerful teams of humans to solve problems on behalf of our partners, our customers, and one another. And you know what? Sometimes we make a little money and have a few laughs along the way.
Yeah,
What do
well
you think
said.
about
And
that, Joe?
yeah, and I saw a great quote today. The road to hell is heaven, and the road to heaven is hell. So it could take, difficulty to get there. Um, so you
And
mentioned you mentioned the wildly popular decision of you leaving, I believe, your sophomore year in college and going to paint houses and do some traveling. Let's expand on that a little bit, Dan. What can we learn from that?
every parent's dream, right? I, for me, it was about listening to what my journey needed to be at that time. As a 19, 20-year-old kid, it's not as if I was filled with a lot of wisdom. I just had a couple of experiences and maybe some desires under my belt. And I had gone to I grew up a single mom. My mom was 16 when I was born, conceived in the back of a 1967 Pontiac, Wisconsin, and so I had a really interesting upbringing with her and my family, and there was a lot of stuff that was happening, but the one thing she always believed in was education, and so she managed to put me in a position where I could go to a unique high school. I had a full ride scholarship for that high school academic scholarship, and was able my senior year of high school to go live in Mexico for 3 months and study ceramics, study Spanish, learn a lot more about Hispanic culture. And at that point is when I got my college returns and my financial aid packages. And I was accepted to Bates with this incredible package, Bates up in Maine, really neat school. And they had first semester abroad where I got to go to move to Tokyo with a group of 12, 13 fellow students, and we learned Japanese and studied a number of different things. And so going to spending 5, 6 months overseas as an 18-year-old after having been in Mexico for a few months, really dramatic experience. Learned so much. Sophomore year, I was able to go to India for 5 months, South India, where I studied religion and South Indian building techniques and a wide variety of other things. And that same year, I moved to Russia. They had a Russian language immersion program, and I was studying Russian literature. And so, all of that to say, some life changing experiences.
Yeah.
And I finished my sophomore year of college after having experienced a brutal Maine winter,
Mm.
pretty tremendous for a Colorado kid. And I realized that going back to school the next year and sitting in a classroom was going to be a bit of a challenge for me. And that I had been effectively bitten by the people bug and the travel bug. And it was time to
Mm.
focus on that a little bit. And I wanted to write and I wanted to meet new people. And so I had grown up doing a lot of construction as a high schooler, working side jobs and roofing and labor and all sorts of things. And being bilingual, slightly bilingual, had helped a little bit as well. And so I started a house painting company, something I knew I could do. And I had a community of people. And it was my first foray into owning the customer and owning the customer experience, and
Mhm.
realizing that the better job I did in delivering results for the customer's needs, paint on a building, it would equal more money in my pocket. And
Mm.
then I was empowered to go do certain things. And it was really cool. It was a really neat experience. I ended up getting another job in the evenings, bartending here in Boulder, Colorado, at a music venue. I've always been a big music guy, and so working two jobs and always being, customer centric meant I got to learn very quickly that if I screwed up, I had to own it and I had to figure it out and make it right. And I had to correct
Mm.
that paint on the wall, or I had to fix that drink the way it was supposed to be. And as a result, I was empowered to take some time and go travel and do these different periods in life.
Yeah, owning the customer, Dan. That's my father is an Italian immigrant. We've talked about this, and he did welding and some construction, and he would do these jobs. He would bring me along, and I would assist. But I was just taught at an early age how to own that relationship. The customer is always right, and it's very valuable as you go forward.
Giuseppe, when did you start working? What was one of your first jobs?
Well, deliver newspapers, that kind of thing to get money. My parents divorced when I was 12, so I started making some money to help out and here and there. But that going to these jobs, these construction sites or whatever gig my father had at the time because he owned his own company at a particular point. He just took these different positions, but just the way he acted around me, yelling at me in Italian to find him a particular tool that I couldn't find, and then when the customer came around, boom, it was very different, right? Straight face, very, very appreciative and jovial. I would see this side of my file. I was like, wow, okay, something's happening here, and I'm learning. And so, just what you learn there is what I learned at the same time, and it's invaluable.
What's interesting about what you just shared is the dichotomy of the old fashioned model. Like,
Mm,
and granted, he's a parent as well, right? So there's even another dynamic at play there. But the aggressive nature regarding the wrench to Joe, and then the light switch to happiness with a partner or a customer. And do you think that that has evolved in a way over time where we can show our concern of what's going on with our customers, and we can also show that concern with our employees, and we can be authentic in our question about what are we trying to solve for, and do we have the right tools, and can we do this together versus what am I going to go solve for you? Like, has there been an evolution in the authenticity related to how we work to solve problems?
I wonder. But I know that we both work with MSPs, small businesses, and oftentimes the discussion I have with them goes further and further away from what the customer wants. Well, if I have this tool, I can do this. If I this I can offer these prospects these features. My father would say, Joe, the only thing he cares about is making sure we finish this job. Is making sure these. So oftentimes when I talk to small businesses or MSPs, I say don't sell features, sell value. So I
Yeah.
wonder, Dan, if we get so kind of caught up in processes and tools and some other distractions when the ultimate goal is to drive and solve a solution for our customer. It's
Yeah.
an interesting thought.
You bring up a really good point, Joe. And I have seen that in a variety of the businesses that I've been involved in, especially where I've taken over legacy sort of MSP selling teams or the MSP motion. And it drives me insane
Mm.
where if I have teammates who are talking about just features and functionality and you need this tool and this is how you're going to use that thing versus being curious.
Mm.
When we as technology companies work more closely with MSPs, with curiosity as our guiding light, trying to understand not just all about how the MSP operates, but even more importantly, in some cases, what problems are you solving for your clients? How do you solve those problems?
Mm.
What's the language that your clients use? What are the two or three things that are absolutely mission critical for your clients that you cannot get wrong? You cannot delay or mess up.
Mm, mm,
Just like what you're talking about with your dad of, hey, this has to be delivered and completed by this time and in this way. Whatever those things are, and working backwards from the why and what those deliverables are, allows technology companies and MSPs to operate as one. And it's not our partner's fault that so many crappy vendors are out there trying to slam features and functionality,
mm,
speeds and
mm.
feeds and acronyms and tool sets. And the reality is that's short-term selfish thinking. That is not love. That is performance driven metrics of, if I can have this deal, or if I can help you with this tool, or you can resell this tool, then we can check some boxes on some numbers and the performance will look right. But you're missing the entire love portion of the equation.
Yeah, missing the love and missing the ultimate goal is in solving a solution. I remember I started my MSP in '93, and a couple years in, we started getting some great clients, and so I started adding employees on, and I had rented 2 rooms in a dentist office for the office, and uh, I was thinking about expanding, and my father came, and I said, "Well, we're kind of running out of room here. We're going to get a larger office," and he said to me, so Tony and Luigi would go into Switzerland with the truck and buy uh, watermelon for 1,000 lira, 1,000 Italian pounds at the time, then come over to Italy and sell them each for 1,000 lira. And after a month, Tony said to Luigi, "We're not making any money." And Luigi said, "I know what the problem is. We need a bigger truck." So this was his way. This was his way of telling me, don't get caught up in this stuff. You still have to solve the problems of your customers. It's an interesting way of looking at it. Dan, but you were at AWS for many years. I mean, talking about this is enterprise level. You're further from the customer, it would seem, and then you're now working directly with MSPs. I mean, how was that kind of switch done? Was it difficult?
Yeah, great question, Joe. There are a few things, just to put it in context for our listeners. I spent most of my career building small businesses of various types
Mm.
and always focused on the operations, the sales marketing, the HR, the scalability side of things, working closely with finance and engineering around some of the tech companies, right? To make sure that things were in harmony so that we could grow organically. And I did a lot of those early startups without a lot of outside funding, which means that bootstrap mentality, right? It's you drive the truck to Switzerland to pick up the watermelon. There was one time when I was CRO of a startup. We were doing about 15 million in ARR, and I had Ring. It was actually Ring before they were bought by AWS. They were coming in, and the toilet in the executive, the meeting room area was backed up, and it was the plunger had broken, and I'm in a suit back in those days, right? And you take off the jacket, you roll up your sleeves, you get in there, and you fix it, and you get your hands wet, and you make it work, right, in those moments. And so that's the mentality that I was raised in when it comes to business. And eventually, I got recruited to Dell, or as EMC at the time, to run a small business for them. Uh, and that was because of people, and I was really attracted to a certain type of leadership and the way that this particular individual thought about how to care for customers, and I wanted to learn about it at enterprise scale versus what I had been doing. Dell bought EMC that year, or later that year, and then eventually I turned that into just shy of $1 billion, and I got to help run and build the VMware business for Dell during that acquisition. And because I'd been I learned a lot in my Dell years. AWS came calling and said, "Hey, we just created a partnership between VMware and AWS." This is Andy Jassy and Pat Gelsinger had run into each other. Some legacy, not enemies, but they were competing, right? And they had sat down at a dinner, probably 8 years ago, and said, "You know what? If we work together, we can actually help more partners and more customers in that journey." And so then they ended up finding me. At that point, there were 3 people on the team, two customers, and a couple $1 million from a federal customer. And so I got to build that over 4 years, that VMware Cloud and AWS business, and be part of this amazing growth that happened. And there are hundreds of people by the time I left at AWS and VMware, both reporting to me and others, across go-to-market and engineering and on the VMware side. And we were able to secure many thousands of customers in that experience. That's that framework on what it took. And the short version is, it's still every single customer or partner that we're able to meet, learn about, win, and support and turn into a customer for life is exactly the same motion. It requires the same activity, whether you're a $1 billion business or you're trying to get your first 3 customers. And it's all about understanding why somebody should hire you to help them solve a problem. And then beginning to do that at scale is adding, yes, those mechanisms, but it's also hyper-focused on the culture required to maintain both that curiosity, the ability to be human first, and a focus on delivering results for your team, your partners, your customers. So I think there's tremendous continuity there. You asked a question about time with partners and customers. At the end of my 4-ish years, that was one of my biggest frustrations with my life, is I wasn't talking to customers every day.
Right.
I was being brought in, hey, we're going to go do the largest deal I ever did was $750,000 with a bank, a major U.S. institution. And being able to, I'm managing a team of 6 people at AWS who are selling into and assisting, this particular bank. And that experience, yes, you learn a lot, but I have way more fun today in my life, in my professional life, because I'm talking to partners all day long. And a mentor of mine has a great golden rule that I try to follow, which is, a day a week you're spending on the front lines. And so, that 8 to 10 hours a week where you're on sales calls, you're on onboarding calls, you're working tickets with the team to understand what's going wrong, right? Leading partner advisory council meetings, one-on-ones with key partners, just anywhere I can be listening and asking questions and supporting my team in a customer partner facing way is transformative. Because at the end of the day, you got to ask yourself, even better when you ask your partners and clients this, why do you give me money? What value am I giving you that you continue to send me money? Money that could be, paying for new sneakers for your kid, or it could be reinvested back in your business. Those are extremely valuable. Every dollar is valuable. So asking that why piece and doing that in the enterprise, it becomes a little bit more harder. You got to leverage the mechanisms in your team in order to feed that in a meaningful way, versus the joy of being able to really shake people's hands, look them in the eyes, and earn their trust enough for them to tell you, hey, 9 out of the 10 things you're doing are really good. This one over here, it sucks, and you got to fix it for me. Because if you can't get that one thing, then you're going to lose the customer, even though you're at 9 out of 10.
You're CEO now, Dan, of Cork, and one of your the core values there is listening. Why is that so important?
Joe, when you think about some of the people in your inner circle, right? Your friends and family members, I bet you've got a couple favorites.
Hmm.
On that short list, do those people provide impact into your life?
Hmm, certainly.
Perhaps they're higher impact than some of the others
Hmm.
who are not on that short list. Maybe they're a go-to consigliere of yours, a parent, a sibling, a child, a aunt, uncle, right? Like a mentor, and they're able to give you the right thing at the right time. Maybe not the full answer, but just enough insight for you to go, ah, I can move through this next gate. I can walk through this door. I can figure this next thing out. And they're able to hit that impact. As a cultural leader and a servant leader, I try to focus on that same level of impact wherever possible. And it's a lofty goal sometimes. But I have never found my ability or my team's ability to have high impact if we just show up assuming we know everything
Hmm.
and we know everything about you and we know about your challenges. Impact comes from working backwards from the why. It comes from listening. I can't be a subject matter expert for you if I don't ask questions of you first. So, one of our leadership principles is listen hard and be the subject matter expert. By focusing on the discovery in a relationship, we can add higher impact and be of greater value. Does that make sense?
I find as I get older, Dan, I have more questions than I have answers. So,
Which maybe is, why you're so successful in this media here, where you're able to ask great questions and talk to uh, people more interesting than I.
well, there's very few more interesting than you, but the reason why I ask a question is so I can listen.
Yeah. Yeah. People's stories are informative. And the one thing you and I and our listeners cannot manufacture is time.
Hmm.
And what do we want to do with our time together? And I think time, as humans, when we're rubbing shoulders and we're working together, solve problems, or we're seeking joy, or whatever it might be, like this becomes some of the most meaningful things that we ever get to do or experience in our
Hmm.
life. And most people find joy in being validated through their interactions with others, being
Hmm.
of service, working for a good company, good team, helping good customers. It feels good. There's a reason why my brother is a detective on the local police force, even though a heartbreakingly hard and somewhat dangerous job,
Hmm.
right? He's able to provide that impact. He's able to help people. I'm really fortunate to be a leader of a cybersecurity company. And when I was preparing to leave AWS, I really had to sit down with my wife, my mentors, my colleagues, and really, and I had a very vulnerable discussion about what should I do next.
Mm.
I turned down an opportunity at Google to go do something similar to what I was doing at AWS purposefully so that I could come back into smaller organizations and have a higher impact in a smaller business because I could work more closely with people. And as I'm thinking through the criteria of like what are the areas that are always interesting to me, the three business opportunities. I'm 48 today. Uh, the three business opportunities, as I look at the rest of my career, cybersecurity front and center, AI and ML, and then anything cloud related, cloud services, right? Business continuity, business, expediting business. Uh, to me, these are really meaningful things, and these are places where I come from, especially at
Mm.
AWS and Dell. And so the ability to have that impact and to work more closely with people and to listen in an area that we know is unfortunately growing in need because the bad guys and the bad girls just keep getting better every day.
Mm.
And so I thought that was a really interesting challenge of all of my cybersecurity experience and background, in cloud and business building. How can I bring that to bear in a meaningful way? And that's how, when I found Quark, the value prop is so simple and it allows me to service partners and clients in a very simple way. Left a boom, right a boom, right? The whole value prop around Cork is we're here to help you understand where the bad guys are most likely to attack. Our insights platform is very good at that. And in doing so, we help our MSPs, MSSPs, IT service providers operate more efficiently with their stack. We are agentless, API driven. We believe in bring your own stack. We trust our partners to build their business and their IT solutions in a way that works for them and their clients, that they're the best listeners to their clients. So we've architected everything in that way to be supportive and provide those insights and increase their efficiency and reduce their attack zone. And then simultaneously, relatively simple, when people get hit, we're right there with our checkbook.
Mm.
In a matter of minutes, people have an electronic credit card and they can start spending. And I am so excited to support our partners and reimburse costs and pay for things and do that because that's what we do. We
Mm.
inform and we support. And to me, the most exciting part of everything, like the day to day, is small and mid-sized business, right? Wall Street has figured out how to take care of itself and have mega teams and mega money for all the enterprise to be able to be highly secure, to pay out when things go wrong, to deal, teams of attorneys, like on and on and on. They have the means. But what about Main Street? Main Street gets forgotten. Main
Mm.
Street cannot continue to be under so much threat. And that's where the shift for a lot of threat actors has come from.
Mm.
And that's where our ability to support 99% of all businesses in North America are SMB, right? By volume. So what can we do? How can Quark help with the majority of the humans in this country and our friendly countries, right? So that we can support and show up every day.
So why should these businesses, Dan, give you and Cork their money?
I love that question. I ask the question of my partners. And to boil it all down, we give our partners confidence to run their business more efficiently, more securely, and knowing that we've got their back if and when things go wrong.
Hmm.
That's why they give us money. One of the first things I did when I joined Cork was start our partner advisory council, and got all of our top partners together. We meet every month and we go deep, and I have a group of individuals, men and women, business owners across Canada, United States, and we work through how they leverage Cork. We work through their tech stack. We work through features and functionality. We work through how they communicate with their clients, what problems they're solving for, some verticalization, on and on, right? Like all the different things. And what are their fears? And then how can Cork be more performant on their behalf? And this constant listening, not just with our key pack members, but on onboarding calls and across 100% of our hundreds of partners through our account management and partner success motion. We created, the other thing I created was our life cycle of a partner program, partner success program, where we're constantly listening, ingesting all of these things. And as a leadership team, we're reviewing every week what is coming in, what are we doing with these things, how are we impacting our partners, back to that impact, how can we add value. Excuse me. It has really created a meaningful interaction. And then those are a lot of inputs, right, Joe? So how do I tell if it's working? Well, as our partners continue to rapidly grow in their success, as I see more and more warranty coverage, as I see us at the intersection of cyber insurance and warranty, and how we're assisting partners and having those tough conversations, those interesting conversations, and the partner acquisition continues to increase dramatically. But it's the referrals, the sheer volume of referrals that tells me if we're doing a good job or not. Does that help?
Yeah, most certainly. Dan, has there been anything in the last month or so in recent history that you've changed your mind on?
Hmm. Joe, there are two things that come to mind, one personal, one professional. I'm going to start with the personal one first. As I mentioned earlier, my mom was on the younger side when I was born, and she focused on education as the success criteria for me, which meant great grades. I had to get A's or die trying, right? And that worked for me for a variety of reasons until it didn't work. But I've got a 9-year-old daughter, Quinny, 6-year-old son, Luca. These are vibrant, fabulous children. I'm the luckiest guy in the world to be their dad. And as my son this year has really started learning how to read in first grade, and it's so fun. And I've been very focused for both of these children on what is the output of your effort? What does the grade look like? What does the teacher feedback look like? Because it must be towards academic excellence. And I had a moment with my son about a month ago, and he said, "Dad, I would like to learn these 3 things and these words, and I want to read this book because Quinny is reading this book, and I want to be able to read the book that she's reading." And I said, "But that's not what your teacher's asking you to do." She says, "I know, but it's fun." And I said, "You know what? I have to put away my old fashioned
Hmm.
thinking on this particular grade thing and exactly what the teacher is looking for, and just celebrate this kid's sweet spot in learning these words, these sentences, these concepts, and just go do this thing with him. There will be time enough for the other output. And that has led us down a rabbit hole of, he's got a particular interest around some car stuff, and so
Hmm.
I happen to like cars a little bit
Yes,
too,
you
and so
do.
that's kind of
Yes, you do.
fun. And yep. And so now, now he's reading these books where he's learning about these different car manufacturers and car parts and what they all mean. And that's not showing up on any first grade
Hmm.
curriculum here in Colorado. So that's shift one. Second, in has to do with Cork, where last month, as we were working with some of these larger partners of ours, over 2,000 seats, right? 2,000 to 20,000 seats. We got quite a few of these opportunities. And as we're learning more and more about their business, I realized that our product market fit was off a
Hmm.
touch, and that what we thought was the best package, the best solution for them at the best possible price point was actually not correct.
Hmm.
And just to put context around that, Giuseppe, we we offer our insights platform and our warranty, and primarily sell a $500,000 warranty for our MSPs, give them full access to be able to put all their endpoints on the platform so they can see what's happening across all of their clients. We also have a less expensive $100,000 warranty with full platform access as well. And then we help the partners with the warranty component, the financial guarantee across each of their clients. And our most successful partners are going to market that way. Some of them are building wildly successful monthly reoccurring profit models by leveraging the financial guarantees of Cork. But as a prerequisite, partners needed to buy and cover themselves with our warranty. Well, what we were finding is that some of our partners have really substantial cybersecurity insurance coverage today for themselves. And of course, they have very sophisticated cybersecurity teams that are able to gather insights from their existing tools and their existing mechanisms. And so the focus of a $500,000 warranty for them was less meaningful when you looked at the cyber insurance component.
Hmm.
And so we began a pilot with a few of them where instead of providing $500,000 coverage to their clients, they actually want 50, and they want to embed all of that within their own cost. So rather than reselling Cork, they are simply absorbing that cost. And I was able
Hmm.
to, I'm always trying to get the cost as low as possible. I want to reduce the amount of spend per client based upon my cost of goods year over year. It's very much an AWS thing. How can I create efficiencies of scale and do things better on the back end so that I can provide more to my partners for less? That is I think that's a rare thing in the MSP space. And that is one of my driving criteria. And so in this case, we were able to find that. And turns out that certain partners want less coverage. They don't need a $500,000 policy for their clients, 50,000. is sufficient because we're covering the endpoints. And when you really start to look at what happened in the market with SentinelOne, CrowdStrike, and there's probably 10
Mm.
types of warranties covering a particular product, and you look at those details, if you actually look at the Schedule A associated with these, the truth is they're providing $1,000 of coverage per endpoint. That's it's a nearly meaningless
Mm.
number.
Mm.
And so I refuse to do anything that's meaningless. Back to that impact piece. And some of that, of course, goes back to what are we learning in running our business and listening to partners? Well, we have one of our most recent claims is a IT service provider called Birmingham Consulting, and they had a client. They have a client for life now. They have a client. It's a female-owned law firm, and she was going through emails and saw a friendly email, clicked on a SharePoint link, and bada bing, bada boom,
Mm.
exposed over 10,000 records in a SharePoint. As soon as she did that, Cork notified the partner. And the partner had another technology which notified them as well that something naughty had just happened. And 24, 25 minutes later, the partner had locked everything down, switched out credentials, identified that nothing had been shared out, was able to secure the environment for this lawyer and her clients. And then we have been working together on a number of different things. And, there's some real highlights there. A, it was $0 for the client. Cork reimbursed the partner for 100% of their time, the fees associated with the time. Cork provides an electronic credit card so that they could instantly spend 10 grand. They had, we could re-up that whenever possible. So to pay for a number of things. At one point, we paid for pizza for the team, right? Because at the end of the day, we're all humans and we all got to eat.
Mm.
And, nothing like a little pizza to help you get through a hard time as you're trying to swarm a client environment and make sure that things are going well. And the list goes on and on. Which includes cybersecurity insurance costs and working with insurance companies. And I have the privilege of working with some great brokers and some great reinsurers. And I love how cyber insurance is trying to do better and is really trying to show up for more and more partners and clients. And I believe that we're moving in the right direction in so many of those ways. And in this particular case, weeks, months, are going by as we and the partner are working with the cyber insurance company in order to make sure that client is whole. And at the end of the day, Cork carried the burden,
Mm.
and the cyber insurance company declined to do a whole lot on behalf of the client, and that's okay. It's why we're here, right? And I happily sign those checks.
Mm.
I'll pause. I said a lot, Joe.
Yeah, this must be really rewarding when you could see your services, kind of come to fruit like that and really, really help.
Absolutely. It's the proof in the pudding.
Mm.
It is why I the team and I, work a fair number of evenings and weekends, and why we're constantly uh, communicating with our partners and what we can be doing better. Oh, also, what's cool about our model is the better our technology is, the smaller the threat vector for our partners and
Mm.
clients. And so it's a self-fulfilling flywheel, if you
Mm.
will, that together we're protecting ourselves a little bit better. Going to go climb a mountain in winter, right? We're adding layers, we're adding crampons, we're adding the ice axe, we're adding the rope, and I might just be the rope for an MSP, and I'm okay just being a rope. You can call me whatever you want, just not late for dinner.
Hmm. So, Danny, I know I've told you this before. I started my MSP in the '90s. I was working way too hard, putting my personal self in the in the rear, and not eating properly, and diet's poor, and not exercising. Got myself up to 340 pounds, and
Unbelievable.
yeah, the doctor says to me, if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. My daughter was just
Oh,
born, scared me. So I'm driving home mad as hell. And, I did this to myself. So I spent the next 6, 7 months, lost 130 pounds. And, you can't look at it as a finishing line when these kinds of changes in your life, they've got to be permanent changes. So you have to keep going with it. And so when I tell this story, I always see a look at people's eye like, "What's the secret? How'd you do it?" And of course, there's no secret, Dan. You know how I lost it and keep it off is discipline. I established routine, willpower. That's how I did it. That's how I continue to do it. How does discipline play a role in your life, Dan Candy?
well, first of all, congratulations to you. You look good. I love seeing you every time I get to see you. And I don't mean that about your aesthetic. I mean that about your vibrancy as a
Mm,
human. And I imagine that that is an output, maybe an unintended
mm,
output of what you were trying to do in your discipline journey. A doctor saying, hey, if you want to be there for your daughter's wedding, you might need to make some change. Like, that's a pretty good first step, second
yeah.
step when things are hard type of driver. But lasting change is, as every single person on this planet knows, is the harder part of that. Making a change for a week or a month is one thing, but making the change over time and for it to stick and become the new you, the adjusted you, the that's the glory of it. And then that becomes the flywheel. Right? I imagine you sitting here today, you're not thinking about, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to go do it all the way I used to. That's a
Mm.
better model, right? Like, are you a happier, committed person because you've found your discipline?
Of course, always room for improvement, but of course.
Yeah, yeah. And I bet you every person in our world, our little world, has an example where they were able to do that at one point,
Mm,
whether it was school or in a job or with a particular role or learning a new skill, right? Maybe it is health and fitness, maybe it's adjusting the foods that they eat, drinking less, whatever that thing might be. And I'm a pretty simple guy. I really got to boil it down to things that I can understand. And at the end of the day, I feel like most people are either seeking joy or running from pain. Those are pretty good drivers
mm.
to with our decision making criteria. And the example you provided is both, right? Like, you wanted to be a happy, healthier person, and you also knew that you would feel a lot better if you could make some of these changes. And then that promise has been delivered. So everybody's got one. In my case, my my demon was booze,
Mm.
and I wasn't much of a drinker growing up as a kid, and then in my 20s found that cocktails were fun and bartending was great. It's a great way to put myself through college or do other things. And ultimately, when I was 33, it is around time between 30 and 33 is where I really struggled with the amount of drinking and how that was impacting my life. And I got humbled in a major way and was fortunate enough to end up in rehab and hit my rock bottom and have my dramatic event, which allowed me to change my framework. And in a very simplified fashion, it's about putting together each day.
Hmm.
What can I do today to be 1% better than I was yesterday? In the case of alcoholism, it the first step is not drinking, right? Which is also the hard step. But there's
Hmm.
good mental health, and there's therapy, and there's networks, and if you want it, I believe that you can get after it, and you have to want it as an individual, because nobody's going to do the thing for you. Nobody's going to walk you to the gym. Nobody's
Hmm.
going to close the liquor stores. Nobody's going to shut down your ability to go to fast food every day, right? Like whatever the thing might be, I don't know. um, and and so I really think it comes down to, what are the simple things in your control today that you can do that will make your life, or the people around you, their lives, just 1% better.
Hmm.
Some days when you lay down at the end of the day and you put your head on the pillow and you go, oh, I took a beating. Oh, this was rough. But you can find that one thing and go, hey, I've got a little love and forgiveness for myself, because, like in my case, I didn't drink a bottle of bourbon yesterday, so
Hmm.
that's good enough for me. Uh, this morning, right? Because it's Monday morning after Thanksgiving break, and my 6-year-old is curled up in my arms at 6-ish, and he's looking at me and he goes, "Dad, I really don't want to go to school today.
Aw.
Can I please stay home today?" And I said, "Bud, love, like, the one thing you got to do is you get to go show up, and you get to walk in the door of that school, and you get to be present, and you can ask your teacher, you can ask your friends, how was your break? What was a highlight of your week? And you can just be there,
Hmm.
and that'll be good enough for him. And it was good enough for me this morning."
I've heard the quote that discipline is doing things you don't want to do and liking it.
Hmm.
There's
How do
another
you
one.
solve for that, Joe?
Not everything, you know, I hear this sometimes. I don't want to eat that because it doesn't taste good. Well, everything you put in your mouth doesn't have to be a party. You know what I mean? There's going to be, you got to suffer a little bit. The idea that we have to have constant pleasure all the time, I think we have
Yeah.
to get back from that. Stuff hurts sometimes, the old no pain, no gain. I think it's good for you. Doing a minute plunge in cold water. It sucks, but but it's good for you. I think the whole idea of that we have to be comfortable all the time. I don't know. I think we just have to. Should be often, certainly. Don't want to be miserable, but what
Isn't
motivates you, Dan?
isn't that becoming harder in this world,
It
though?
is because there's so many comforts.
Oh,
There's so
oh
many
my!
comforts. And I
It,
hate to be the old man in the store saying, "Young lady, why do you have slippers on and pajamas?" I hate to be that person, but I can't help but think it. You know what I mean? Get off my lawn or lower that music. I don't ever want to be that person. But I mean, there's just, yeah, that's how I live. Just there's gonna be parts that just suck. Just embrace it and move on.
we live in a culture that makes it easy to consume and or be distracted,
It does. Yeah.
and it's monetized. So the better companies do to simplify these things, to automate these things, and to provide instant joy, means that you're going to spend more and more time doing that thing.
Mm,
And so I think it's really hard. And I don't
it
know,
is.
I, I how many parents know that they are exceptional parents and how to do everything and guide their children in this world. I certainly don't. how many business owners know that they're making the right decisions and managing their teams just the right way to be able to provide them the focus in the room versus the distractions in a business, or the personal distractions, right? Like, it's really hard to do these things. The amount of food that can be delivered at a
Oh,
high cost versus, or walking into a gas station, or it's just like you walk in, it's overwhelming to think about how much unhealthy food options exist for all of us. And food is changing behind the scenes to be tastier and more consumable and addictive, right? Like, it it, I feel like there's so many of these things out there. And I think at the end of the day, I'm curious what you do here. At the end of the day, you can pick a couple battles for yourself, or your family, or your business, or your friends, and go, I'm drawing the line.
mm,
For some people, might be food, might be how many people turn off social media or do a social cleanse for a month. How many
mm.
people don't drink in January, right? And like turn off that distraction. Kind of on and on, because at least it's a short term adjustment to try to gain some control back for us as individuals. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. When I was having the deep conversation and punching the steer wheel, driving away from the doctor, thinking, this is my pie hole. I control what I put in it. And like you said, there's just so many comforts, and these foods are so inexpensive. Of course, especially here in the States, there's just, we've got seed oils and everything. Everything is so processed. It's just your body doesn't know what to do with it. And you have to be disciplined enough to read some labels and decide what you're going to do and what you're not going to do. You can't control everything. I was at a Mexican restaurant over the weekend. Great, tastes great. Who knows what they're putting what, what they're putting in there? So where do you draw that line? You have to kind of make these decisions yourself.
Yeah, I, I think it works in our personal life and professional whenever we're able to ruthlessly prioritize, like, for the things that we know will have the best impact for ourselves or our businesses, and to keep those things front and center. That becomes a helpful decision making criteria,
Mhm.
especially when things get hard. Again, as we talked earlier, things are easy. It's all good. It's all aces. All the
Mm,
flowers smell beautiful. But when starts things start falling down, what do you do? And what's that framework that you're going to leverage? What are the absolute, I will do this, I will not do this, I will
mm,
not do. And having the discipline to review those things, and to have people in your family or your business to go, hey, you hold me accountable, I'm going to hold you accountable.
mm,
Well, if you've got that love piece, then it becomes more acceptable. It's easier to say, I'm in pain, or I'm at risk, or this doesn't make sense. Can you help me? And then we hold each other accountable back to that simple framework of, hey, this is what we're going to do today. We'll get through
hmm.
this particular thing. I, I,
So what is it?
I don't want to live alone in this world. I need the
Right.
validation, right? That I'm making meaningful choices. I'm being a good human. I imagine everybody listening wants some of those basic things of love and success and security and validation, that we are loved and we are doing a good job. And yes, I see you improving, and you're doing things a little differently. Like, that's a meaningful human existence in its most base form.
Hmm.
And at the end of the day, those things add up. The weeks of slight improvement, that 1%, turns into months. And then you look back over the course of a year and you go, huh, I learned something. I operate a little bit differently now. And I've got maybe perhaps a little more power, or I am empowered in my life in a way that I wasn't before. And if you can prioritize against your framework, some of those simple goals, simple ideas, it helps you get there.
Hmm. What motivates you, Dan?
Seeing a family member or a friend smile
Hmm.
and live and be happy, or work through a challenge, uh, that feels really good. Seeing teammates, men and women that have worked for me, be promoted, learn new skills, grow as professionals and as in their personal lives, brings me insane joy.
Hmm.
I'll give you an example. When I work with my team, especially people earlier in their career who will have more job, like additional jobs within our company, but also jobs outside of our company, right? There's a long career trajectory, and I'm able to learn what that path looks like for them and help them eventually in a different business, in a different role, by growing and succeeding and learning new skills, things that they're doing today. How does that impact the unknown ahead? And to see those career trajectories, absolutely motivational, right? I think of the world, especially in business, through that servant leadership mentality. And I know that when I'm of service to my team and we're being of service to our partners and the clients, that it will result in some pretty tremendous things down the road. One way or the other, it will result in good things happening. Don't always know what those things are. And there's a lot of joy in that. I also am highly motivated by the ability to step away from work and family and pursue my own, passions, whether it's rebuilding a vintage car and doing something with my hands, or being on a racetrack and trying to hit the apex and oftentimes failing, and occasionally improving and getting it right. Like, those things are fun, and a good way to separate from some of the obsessions of our life and families.
Hmm.
What about you, Joe? What motivates you?
Yeah, impact, similar to you. Impact, and knowing that I play any type of role in someone else's success. So, given those motivations, Dan, how do you measure success?
Ooh, love and performance.
Yeah.
Are people succeeding in finding joy and living fulfilling lives? And what is that? What does success look like on a performance basis? At the end of the day, one of our other leadership principles is deliver results,
Hmm.
and being able to focus on the objective outputs and the objective results of all of the efforts. So much of what many of us do are these teeny tiny things, whether it's an email or a 15-minute conversation or solving something for a partner, or just lots of these little things. And they all have to add up to those objective results. And what I like about objective versus subjective is it allows us to identify gaps. What is the gap to great? A lot of times we're building things that we know will result in good performance. And sometimes good is good enough. But what is that gap to great? Because there's usually only 2 or 3 things we can do in our life that is really exceptional. And in the case of Cork, it is when I see how much more efficient we make our partners before Cork and after Cork, I can see the objective results on how they have minimized threat vectors based upon our insights platform. That's an objective measurement, and I love seeing that. And we have to improve month over month, week over week. We look at these things 3 times a week and what that ratio looks like, and then where are which are the exact partners where we need to jump in and go help and show them how we can help them be more efficient and safer. Right? Those are objective things that we can do. And it just makes me happy because I know we're doing the right thing for them and their clients. And it means that we're working as a business, right? Having my son be able to read a story to me at the end of the night is an amazing result and brings me personal joy that is equal to some of the professional joy that I see in when we're able to help our partners.
It all comes back to love and performance. It's going to be the title of your memoir, Dan. I see it.
Man, it could be gap to great with an emphasis on there's a lot of gaps. I don't know. We should bring my wife in next time and we can ask her opinion on what I can be doing better. Shoot.
Always room for improvement. Dan, thank you so much for your time today. Anybody listening, that if they want to get in touch with you, how can they do so?
Yeah, hit me up, Dan at corkinc.com. Love to get an email from you. Love to hear if I can be of service in any way to you or your business, or your family. I think that's a pretty good start.
Cork is Corkinc, Cork. Cork.com is also the website. You're also active on LinkedIn, Dan Candee, Candee. We'll make sure to put it in the show notes. Dan, I look forward to seeing you again and, having a cup of tea and perhaps breaking some bread.
Sì, Giuseppe, per favore. E grazie per tutti.
Grazie per te. Arrivederci. Ciao.
Okay, ciao, ciao.
Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because I was working way too much. Before you know it, I found myself 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. Took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People think there's some secret. Ask me, how'd you lose that weight? Like there's some secret. There is no secret. How'd I lose the weight? Just one word, discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends, colleagues convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission: how do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport, wellness, business, technology, science, art, and culture. And I eventually ask them how discipline plays a role in their life. Podcast vision: growth through learning from others.